We're going to have to share a microphone, so we might do some dancing back and forth a little bit during the session. Yeah, stick it in my pocket. Okay, so welcome everybody to the flipping workshop. I thought I came up with all sorts of associations. We've got the flipping forum as well that you can contribute to and continue the discussion further, either during or after the session. You can also feel free to come and talk to us at any time. My name's Debbie Tuchek. I'm currently working for Arctus, which is a consulting company. I formerly worked here at UNSW Canberra, and I've been in this business for quite a number of years. Can you go to the next slide? So I started lecturing back in 1997, and I did my PhD at the very beginning of 2000, when I really needed a learning platform to really do my research, actually, in education. And I hacked a really awful version of a CMS tool called PostNuke, and it was a bit ugly, but it was functional. And it was about the same time that Martin Dugumas came up with the same problem, and of course he created Moodle. And I saw what he did, and I went, damn, that's fantastic. Let's go with that. That's much better. So 2005, we were using Moodle in Japan, where I was working, and we were really running it seamlessly in a blended learning environment there. We had an independent evaluator come through from New Zealand, and she, at that time, was impressed at how seamlessly it was being used. So we were running completely in computer labs. Students were accessing it in their off time, as well as when they were in the rooms as well. So it was really being used throughout the entire course. So in a sense, that was kind of the earlier days of the flip model, but that was sans video. You know, we weren't using the videos quite so much at that point. Obviously, I've been teaching since then in a number of different institutions, most recently here, teaching academic practice, which is an online course, 100% online. So teaching people to critically read and write online comes with its own unique challenges. But I've reported at other Moodle Posium conferences about that particular project, so I'm not going to go into it too much. And now, as I said, I'm working at Arctus, which is a new challenge, establishing a learning capability from scratch, using all of the various different experience that I've developed over the years.
Okay, hello everyone. So my name's Shane, so I'll be co-presenting with Deb today. So a little bit about me. I work for inside the Learning and Teaching group here at UNSW Canberra, called the Flexible Learning team. So I work as one of the two learning developers here at UNSW Canberra, so being the baby of the two campuses of Kensington. We have academic staff of a little over 200, so I'm responsible for the two schools learning that was really a big leap for me.
Okay, so before we start, I just wanted to do a little bit of a quick check as to the demographics that we've got in the room. Who here would consider themselves to be a beginner user of Moodle and flipped learning? Okay, intermediates? Advanced? Ooh, so we've got quite a bit of a spread. We did originally pitch it for beginners, but we kind of had a feeling that we would have to ramp up fairly quickly. So for those of you who are advanced users, please do bear with us. We will get up to the more technical level and more challenging levels hopefully towards the end. For those of you who are beginners also, don't worry, we're not going to go too far too fast. We're going to start with some really fundamental basics. Okay, that gives us a bit of an idea of how to pitch. Okay, so now this is the overview. Now, we've actually been running this course already as a flipped course. Don't know if any of you noticed. Okay, so there are actually resources online which go through and give you a lot of the content in advance, which under ordinary circumstances, if you had been a learner, you would have had the time, hopefully, to sit down and go through those. So you would have understood the pedagogic frameworks and assumptions that we're working on, some of the student considerations and technical considerations that you may have already experienced or that you might want to think about when you're starting to develop or translate your course from the current model that you're using into a flipped course model. Now, because we're doing this for Moodle Posium and we're not really investing in it as a long-term course, it's more of a one-off, we haven't given it the richness and complexity that you would usually expect in a flipped approach. So we're also taking into account that most of you probably haven't had the time to sit down and have a look at any of the resources. So we're going to do a little bit of a quick recap as to what the basic tenets are. So there is the video. If you go into the media collection, the media collection at the top. Yep, that one. And click on open that one. Okay, go scroll to the bottom. This is the media collection, so you can actually find all of the slides that we used today in a gallery in the particular course, as well as any of the YouTube videos that we've used as well. So this is a particular YouTube video that's not created by us. The credits are given at the end. It gives a little bit of an understanding specifically of what the flipped classroom is not.
Could we just get the lights just next to the door? Might make it a little bit easier to see. It's better.
As a flipped classroom teacher, I've seen lots of misconceptions around what the flipped classroom is and what the flipped classroom is not. So, rather than discussing what the flipped classroom is in my practice, I'll discuss a list that most flipped classroom teachers can agree the flipped classroom is not. So, let's get started. The flipped classroom is not the Khan Academy. While the Khan Academy is an excellent resource for use in and out of the classroom, the flipped classroom is special because classroom teachers create the videos to suit their students' needs. We want students to be active in their learning, not droids sitting in front of screens getting a lecture from someone halfway across the globe. The videos are an extension of the teacher and help create a strong relationship between student and teacher. The flipped classroom is not a replacement of teachers. This couldn't be further from the truth. In the flipped classroom, the role of the teacher is more important than ever. There's no sitting at the back of the class reading the newspaper and having a coffee, as much as I'd like to sometimes. In the flipped classroom, the teacher is active all day. Teachers get a chance to work with every student, every class. The flipped classroom is not all about the videos. Yeah, videos are the backbone of the flipped classroom, and I am hoping one of these days to produce a video that goes viral and perhaps appear on Ellen. However, it is the flexibility the videos provide that is the true benefit. Teachers now have additional classroom time where they can develop rich learning activities to extend their students' experience. The flipped classroom is not the silver bullet. The flipped classroom does not solve all that is broken in education. If it did, I'd probably be filthy rich. It's just one tool to increase student learning. Inflexibility, lack of classroom time, and student-centered classrooms are problems that I feel the flipped classroom helps solve. The flipped classroom is not a one-size-fits-all teaching approach. Each flipped classroom teacher develops an approach that works for them and their students. As an example, some teachers have students watch the videos in class, some students watch them at home, in a car, on a bus, on a plane. It's turning into a Dr. Seuss book. And some even get the students to create the videos themselves. The limits of the flipped classroom are only as limited as the teacher's imagination. The flipped classroom is not top-down. The flipped classroom is 100% driven by teachers. For the model to be authentic, it needs to be initiated and created by the teacher for the teacher. How often have we attended a staff meeting to be presented with the newest flavor of the week to never give it another thought? The flipped classroom is a flavor teachers want to do because they believe in it. And it's delicious. The flipped classroom is not a teacher holiday. The flipped classroom is anything but a holiday. The amount of time that goes into creating quality videos and activities is second to none. In the classroom, teachers are no longer spending their time lecturing. Instead, they're constantly interacting with their students, inspiring, observing, and as we all know, sometimes prodding. The flipped classroom is not easy. Students have been in the traditional model of school for their entire educational career. They like playing school. Some of them are very good at it. Now that we want them to play learning, it can be a tough pill for them to swallow. And lastly, the flipped classroom is not all about students watching videos for homework. It's about students using videos when and where appropriate for their learning journey. Many of my students find that they use their classroom time so effectively they rarely have homework. And believe me, they love this. Now they have time for things that truly matter to them, like Twitter and Facebook. These are just a couple of things I think the flipped classroom is, and the flipped classroom is not.
Okay, so that'll give you a little bit of an idea as to what the flipped classroom is not, and also some of the things of what it actually is. Okay, this is the definition, which comes from the Flipped Learning Network. You can go to the website, .org, and there are lots of different resources about and examples of how to actually implement the flipped learning approach. But we'll get through this fairly quickly because we want to get into the hands-on discussion component of the workshop. So you may have also heard the flipped approach being referred to as inverted or backward, which is, and a very simplistic way of thinking about it is kind of reversing the, doing activities at home vis-a-vis the lecture content and swapping the two. So you're doing the lecture content at home or in your own time on the bus, on a plane, wherever it is, and you're doing the actual engaged activities in the lecture time. So for a lot of people within higher education, this is really, as I said, it's a simplistic concept. It's not terribly new. It's something that we probably are already doing in a lot of cases. So it underpins and supports a lot of the pedagogic practices and theory that we are already establishing our teaching principles on. So when we're drawing from Socrates and the Socratic method, when we're drawing on Dewey, Montessori, Cole, all of the people, Henry Hollick, and all of these, the self-directed learning principles, socio-constructivism, constructivism, all of the student-centered practices that we've been incorporating, all of these sit very nicely within the realm of the flipped classroom. So essentially what we're trying to do is blend the best practice pedagogy with digital learning constructs. Yep.
Okay, so with this in mind, the challenges for the students, I put it under the challenges for me or potentially other students when studying by distance. And I put it like this because the learning and teaching group conveniently sits next to the School of Business. So it wasn't hard for me to walk next door and simply ask the academic or walk next door and ask Deb if I had a question. So it wasn't a true representation of what the student is experiencing when they're studying by distance. The isolation and the face-to-face when they're
I think the concepts that that Mike spoke about in the keynote this morning are really prevalent in a lot of the things that Shane's just been discussing. So in terms of how the structuring of the course, being able to personalize the learning experience, so having different ways or avenues for engaging in the content and making sense of it yourself. Having, as I said, the structure, the scaffolding, to be able to understand what direction to go in and then be able to develop your own path and expand further as you go through the course. The concepts of rolling assessment and feedback actually linking on to one another. So if you've got rolling assessments which are building on one another, then all of a sudden the feedback from the previous one becomes integral in establishing and improving themselves going forward. If you're in a different environment, however, you can actually incorporate this into a broader situated practice context where demonstration of competency is something which can be realized and put into the practical world to give them an additional real-world feedback. So it's really as broad as you need it to be. It's just about how you bring the technology into that particular environment. So, quick question. Yep, this one. What elements of the course do you think should be online or face-to-face? What things do you think can't be delivered online? Is there anything? Show of hands. This lady over here says nothing. Ladies back.
I think the whole class interaction, the kind of conversation, real-time conversation that you have can improve even if an activity and then bouncing into it and perhaps even feedback can be fantastic.
How would you counteract?
Well, you couldn't do that online. You could have a one-on-one meeting, but collaborate, and you could actually see each other and interact and build that relationship as you would in a face-to-face environment.
Yep.
Some things are still more awkward online. So, you know, you said yourselves you did these whiteboard sessions. We have a whiteboard in program, but sometimes a real whiteboard's easier to use.
Okay. Yep. Yes.
Some practical things I don't think you do online.
For example.
Changing a spark plug in an engine.
Okay. All right. You could potentially have simulations of it, but it's not quite the same as actually doing it. Yep. That's absolutely true. However, in a blended environment, you could link those two together, couldn't you?
No, most definitely.
Yep. So, anybody else have some ideas about that?
Well, some
Yep.
learning styles depend on this. So some people thrive on this.
Yep.
And when it's deficit in the learning experience, then there's deficit in the learning for that person.
Absolutely. But there's also the flip side of that as well. There are some students, and I've discovered in a lot of the online courses that I've been running, that actually gravitate towards the distance courses because they don't want the social. So you can actually have the two extremes in the same course. And I'm sure you've all had this experience if you've done blended learning and virtual learning courses yourselves. How do you reconcile the differences between those two?
The flipped classroom allows you to have the best of both worlds, where you have the external knowledge being placed online, being able to access that, and then in my own case, I teach electrotechnology. I have them come in for workshops and then practice and practical, so I get the best of both worlds. I have the guys that can do it and know it, actually access it and go forward. Those who need a bit more help, I now have time to actually look at that individual and say, this is your problem, this is what you need to know, this is how I can carry you forward so you actually improve confidence.
That's exactly right, and that's essentially what we're looking at in the flipped context, right? So, but we can enrich that further, and it started out with the idea of just putting some videos online, which was essentially the lecture. Okay, so the lecturer talking, presenting in a presentation mode, and then they would do homework tasks in the class, and the teacher would be able to have that extra time to go around and help the people who needed it, making sure that they clarify their understandings and so forth. But what we're actually looking at now is enriching that context even further. So yes, at its basic form, they're the components. So, which is your concept exploration. Here are some resources that you can work through. And now we're starting to actually backtrack. And we're saying, what if we situate them in an experience first? So as a teacher, we're looking at generating situations where the students can explore something first without having the focus directed upon them. So you can start the mode of inquiry just that little bit earlier. So they've experienced something. Now we want to start to get them to focus on specific elements of it. So starting with these, it can be games. I know there's another workshop on gamification. It could be games. It could be community projects. It could be working in some kind of electric shop, playing around with things. And then moving on to the more specifics of things. And then we're going to push it out more into the user-generated area. So we're starting to really try to get them to work with the information rather than just presenting it. And this is where we start to incorporate not just the independent learners who want to go off and do their own thing, but now we're starting to really make them to apply it, to talk to other people about it, to challenge their understandings and make sense of it through a number of different means. Now, from a teacher's perspective, there are a whole range of different kinds of tools and strategies we can use to do this. So, discussion forums, we know. Blogs, we know. Wikis, we know. And we have one that we would like you to use throughout the course, which is at the top of the little Posium workshop. But you can extend it into the user-generated content. So, why not have them making those videos? Potentially, they could be working in groups and showing and rating them. They could be communicating different concepts or different parts of a concept, exploring how to improve things, coming up with suggestions. They could be writing diaries, journal entries, portfolios, pulling down resources from different sources other than the ones that we've already given them, and trying to make sense of it within a broader context before they come and start applying it. So, and that's where perhaps you've got them in the lab and they might want to be putting chemicals together, or they might be using spark plugs in electric circuits, or they might be having to use a language within a particular community, depending on what it is that you're teaching. So from my perspective, I think that's really the challenge when we start going into blended and virtual learning and bringing the flipped classroom really online, is about how do we get those connections happening between not only all the different devices that we were talking about in the keynote earlier today, but also the different environments beyond the technology as well, and all of the various different resources that are available to us within that space. Okay, so for the first activity, what I'd like you to do is we've nicely formed in lovely groups of lovely tables here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think we've got one more than what we were originally expecting, but that's okay. So what I'd like you to do is each table is going to address a particular topic. So first and foremost, what activities or tools are going to lend themselves to understanding your student cohort. So how do I know how many of those social people I've got vis-a-vis the independent learners? And is it okay that people just go off in the corner and do their own thing? Do they have to be a part of the group? Right? How do we get to understand what the demographics of that group are going to be and enable us to adjust our course delivery? So that's the first one. Who would like to pick that particular topic to talk through? Okay, you want to do it here at the front? Okay, so the second one is the concept exploration. I'm looking for the ones who have probably not the beginners in that particular place. there were a few people over here who said we're intermediate. Yeah, you're happy to take that one? So, and my challenge to you is to think not just about the concept exploration, but also the experiential part. So that kind of, is there a context that you could set prior to that, and how could you go about doing it? Third one, meaning-making opportunities. Probably, let's do these two tables. I'll get you working on that. So the kinds of things that enable many-to-many and one-to-many interactions. And it also enable them to make sense of it for themselves. So one-to-one as well as many-to-many. And finally, our table in the middle. I'm going to challenge you to have a look at the kinds of things that you would be doing, perhaps offline. If you are very experienced in using that, you might want to think about how those same things can be done online. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Okay, so now, from the keynote this morning, I think pretty much everybody has an electronic device with you. So hopefully everybody has access to the Moodle Posium website, or you can share with somebody who has. So if we got.
On the Moodle Posium website, click into the workshop and you've got the workshop with you. So just click into, there should be 5 groups there.
Yeah, I think we did 5 groups, so I've just assigned 5 groups. It should have come out just as your email address and the normal password.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it? Which was the
Well, we're just going to do one iPad per table, aren't we?
Yeah, but I'd like to get into that.
Yeah.
Would do.
Where am I arguing? Where am I good? Sorry.
Okay. All right. Okay. So has everybody found this particular site that we're looking at? If not, I can step you through it. Okay, so if you go into the program and you literally click on the square which has, you know, the flipping workshop actually on it. So it's, sorry, I'm going to just borrow this. It's, so you're looking for that program and you're just literally clicking onto the square for the workshop, and that should open it up for you. Into the attendee zone? Yeah. Okay. Okay. You're going to do group 1? Okay, sure.
We're the 6th table that hasn't got that topic yet. So
Oh, didn't I assign you one?
we thought we'd do number 1.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
So we just go in here. Is this where we put our feedback?
Yep.
Here?
Yep. So, are you logged in? Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, so that's coming up.
Brainstorm, your group answers here for 10 minutes, and then we will share.
I'm going to edit.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So here are the questions. Understanding of the student cohort.
Yeah. So what kinds of activities and tools could you use to help you to understand the cohort better? Yep. Hello. Okay. Yes, you're not logged in. Okay, so you definitely need to be logged in first. Okay. It should be your email address. Yeah. And the password. Have you logged in before?
No, I haven't.
No? Okay. All right. So it was sent to you. I think I know what it is, but yes, the default password, and it might prompt you to change it if you haven't used it before. Yeah. Okay. So how are we going? We're almost into the system. No, that's all right. We're just getting everybody in at the moment, making sure everybody's got access. No, we're talking about, well, for this is what activities and tools would you be using to get students to apply the content, and in the face-to-face mode initially. So assuming that they've done all of the preparation work, and then they're coming in to actually practically implement all of that learning, and what kinds of activities and tools would you use to get them doing that. So firstly in the face-to-face mode, and then
Task-based learning.
it could be. Yeah, depending on your approach, yeah, absolutely. It could be problem solving, taking a PBL approach. You could then extend that, depending on how you're going, to maybe some activities that could potentially not only be done face-to-face, but you might be able to translate that to online, because we're going to look at that a little bit later.
Per table, whoever can log in, and then the group can...
Well, everyone's just wanting to log in and to make sure they can get access to the resources at the moment.
But they could have their mics and they could chat to one another as they were trying to come up with the answers to the questions that you posed them.
How are we going back at this table? If we manage to get in?
We're still mucking about.
That's all right. That's all right. You have to. This is the part of my courses that I usually refer to as technical familiarization sessions, which basically means just getting everybody up and running. It's a really key component to everything we do. Yes. They have pretty strong password controls on in Moodle these days. So it was one alphanumeric, one uppercase, one non. Yes. Yeah, you will have to change it.
It'll just be like all your other classes.
Try a few that you've been using.
And then we have the pre and post
Sorry, I came in on the tail end of that.
Well, we're actually trying to work out what the question was again.
Okay, so what activities tools would you use for going through, and I believe I gave you the concept exploration part. So if we're doing it, that concept exploration part was and the experiential part is really that first phase. So they're actually being asked to do this on their own. So these are some of the things that you are trying to get them to do in advance, so that they can get an understanding of the content prior to coming in and really working and applying it with you and going through it and clarifying their understandings.
Because you also said activities tools. Do you want Moodle specific ones, or it can be any?
It can be broader than, obviously, Moodle's where we're at, so I'm quite happy for people to choose that. But if you've got other tools that you've used that are working really well for you, feel free to share. I mean, that's why we're all here, is to kind of learn as much as we can. We're trying to broaden it out beyond Moodle.
because we're talking about conceptual understanding, you have to frame it based on what your learning outcomes are. So you have to have a really clear sense of what you want them to be able to do, think, and evaluate by the end of that session, that session within the course. So
Yep.
that means for us at ANU, because I've been working with a lot of people with masters level stuff, again they come back, they have a lot of study skills, but what we focus on first of all is getting what is their understanding of the issue. So if you've set some video material like you've said, or you've set some reading, or you've got something, there's an interactive that you want them to do, what you're trying to get them to do is then share where their starting points are. What are their conceptions of this issue? So you and the rest of the group can identify, common things that they think, whether that's evidentially based, basically also stuff like, is there any journey, and then what kind of interventions can you make. So so for example, one of the national security college courses we're doing at the moment, they would do something like they would have short little mini lectures where the lecturer's giving them a couple of the key points that he wants them to consider.
Yep.
He'll point them at some resource material, it might be some online videos, it might be some other stuff, yeah?
Yep.
And then they'll set up a discussion forum that's got a very specific focus. The specific focus is on exploring a concept that he wants for them to tag where they're understanding that and where they're going to go with it, where he can go with it as well. So that's a mini thing that we would do, and it's not that exciting because obviously we're dealing a lot with it gets applied as they go on. And applied might be how would you apply this to a policy, a policy analysis issue or something. But getting them to sort of first of all get an understanding of where they're coming from, key concepts, theory, frameworks for analysis. They're the kind of journey that we would take them on. We'd want to scaffold all of those little bits of conceptual activity in each of those weeks around building those skills so they could actually do some of the assessment activities we want to learn. That's how we're trying to do it. So we're trying to make their thinking explicit. We're trying them to be exposed to other people's thinking, and that can happen through their voice, and they might do a little podcast on what they think the current issues are. We have that done on with some of the national security. So that's great, and that's what we're doing.
No. This is very good because you've touched on a few really key areas. So setting up the learning outcomes, setting up the framework, making sure it's scaffolded, interesting mini videos. Okay, so it's about key points, extracting those key points, and you can do it via video in this case. Also, placing the student within the course is really important from the very beginning of the course. So getting them to understand where everything is, what's expected of them, where they need to go. So it's a few key points that we've drawn out so far. Any other things? You were going.
One point, which is the point you were making about them understanding and giving them the kind of orientation in the course and stuff. One of the things we've started doing this year, which is the first year we've done, is being very explicit about scaffolding for their learning activities as well as the assessment activities. So giving them a really clear sense of what we want them to do, ways that they could go back, they'll surprise much of others, and what why it's important to their learning. So giving them a clear sense of how it's adding to their learning experiences. Now it's actually really hard work to get academics to actually enunciate that, but when they do, it's very valuable for students as well. They're not kind of guessing what things are. So it's sort of really straightforward. It sounds straightforward. It's actually hard to get to that point, but it's great to get really clear about what is it, what sort of skills, what sort of capability, what sort of application that those students will need to do with this. Yeah, exactly. Metacognitive skills, right. So we'll also discuss a bit about them reflecting on how they're going in their own learning journey, but also, for instance, in those opening things, if you have a blog post and you've got the students to respond to a question, peers are then responding to the students' question, which is again about getting multiple perspectives and getting different points of view about ideas and ways to approach.
And I think that's really where I was going in terms of that idea of starting with the concept exploration, but then going into that the meaning making, which is about the discussions and then clarifying your understandings and seeing the different perspectives, which I think, as I said, is a really strong part of the process that we need to try and build in. It's great.
Moment, you're allowing students to go at their own pace, allowing the student to actually reach a point where they can actually do assessment or say, yeah, I'm progressing well, I want to, do this and keep going while others are taking more time or needing more time. And that's a real struggle to try to work a model where students can have that practice. There's one that I think really works well with the classroom. It's actually not the scaffolding, but it's like allowing students to have the option of how they want to learn in terms of, rather than everything just being reading videos, whatever, you have different methods for the same information. And then some of them might get it just by watching a video, and some of them might need to read and watch a video and perhaps discuss or whatever.
Yeah, so instead of multiple ways of engaging with the concepts.
With the same material.
Excellent, yeah.
But also then just trying to get teachers or whatever to get their head around the fact that you can let things finish early and then work on the ones that need more time or more, like it sounds like it's abandoned, but they just can't, it's almost like, yeah, I like it as an idea, but I just don't know how.
Yeah, Yeah, probably in a virtual sense, if you're 100% online, it might work. But in terms of the conversations that the lady was talking to earlier, and having those kind of very fluid conversations, it's quite difficult if you've got people at different levels. You would have to scaffold it in more of a kind of like a mentoring kind of concept. That's right. Yeah.
Well, I think they negotiated that with CDIT, and that was in there. So they're very interested in massaging Moodle where there isn't, anything I covered there. So they built it through Moodle, is my understanding.
Because right now that's the only thing that's kind of lacking is that social aspect. It's not building more of it. Right now, the way we have it set up.
Our students use the IS Intelligence School. So those certifications is hardwired to do to well, it's just that they're already on it. Phones.
Yeah, and that's the thing, the mobile aspect is new. And then the calendar aspect you get in play. Yeah.
I set up a group in a tiny groups where everybody agrees to it, like a subside, and got a group where they get through an academic area, not through Moodle, which is also
Yep.
possible for the university with not paying. So you set up Facebook group, and I would make it for accessibility and that to users. And
Yeah.
the big one is if a student comes up to a semester and they find out they have a disability,
That's exactly right.
the
Yeah.
assumptions about me brand
Mm.
sometimes misplaced.
I get a little bit concerned about that because I think that and I know the keynote this morning was talking about how that this is kind of breaking down the digital divide, and I thought potentially it can actually make a larger digital divide as well. Well,
Smartphones are so easy to use, it's really fast to get in.
that's right. And look, 16% of Canberrans alone don't have access to internet, period.
No, we have
Simply. Yep.
Selling way of getting everyone to share information online and you as the facilitator just kind of manage everything and get it back to the right place. That's what the classroom setup in my mind is very important.
So what are the types of things that you're looking at trying to establish? Sorry, I'm coming in partway through the conversation.
we're not really sure.
We're just trying to work out a way that you can, I guess, replace face-to-face with something in online context. So the way that you could take a facilitated discussion and move it online and put some as being a way that you can do that and get the students to interact and sort of share.
Look, another way you can do it, sorry, I'll come in late too, I have to take call, but there's a feature in YouTube called YouTube Live or ULive or YouTube Live or something. But what it is, it's a very simple, I suppose, collaborative, almost online video capacity. And so what you do is just you can set it up through a laptop, you can set it up through an iPad, even through a mobile device. And what you can do is get several people in on a conversation at the same time. So it's like video conferencing. And so it's sort of, and it's all online and live. So my son's used it a couple of times. He's surprised with it.
Maybe here, I think might need a little bit of help.
Do you want to keep watching? They're kind of talking about socialisation and application. How much time have we got? Yeah. Hi, how are you? So you had a question?
Oh no, a question about the question, interpretation of the question. What I think we had a different. I had a different interpretation to what Shane was saying of the question.
Okay.
So have when you say meaning-making opportunities that include most students, he was talking about like understanding why they are doing the particular course that they're doing. And I think we were coming up with just ways of using or ways of creating opportunities for students to interact with each other and with students or teachers and students interacting?
More along those lines, yeah.
Okay.
So it's basically taking the concepts that they've been exposed to and actually trying to understand them, clarify those understandings,
Okay.
to challenge other people, challenge different notions within that, to be able to take on board different perspectives,
Yep.
and to kind of develop a more comprehensive and deeper understanding of the information.
Learning together.
Do in a small group conversation. How can you emulate that sort of learning in other contexts?
For example, yeah. But meaning making can also be on an individual context as well. So it could be through reflective blogging, or it could be generating as I said, generating a video about a particular concept and trying to get feedback from other people on it. So. Okay. All right. So yeah. So how do we want to wrap this up? Do you want to skip through? Yep.
On the screen.
Yep. Okay. And I'll get them to talk through to the audience rather than us doing.
We go to the top of the class, we've got ours. We're going to the top of the class, we're in.
Okay, so we had two groups working on the first one, which was about understanding your particular cohort. So we're going to have a little bit of a wrap up, and if I can ask you to give us the highlights of your conversation as to what you think were the really important aspects that you'd like to share with the rest of the group. Obviously, you can log in and have a look at these at a later stage. And we will continue the discussion going forward. Okay, so very quickly, so the people who are looking at understanding the cohort, what kinds of activities and tools did you think about for getting a better feeling for your students, particularly the online ones?
What we put up there.
So for those of you around the other side of the poll, so group discussion surveys, face-to-face discussions, so that might be in the very first session. Icebreakers, blogs, personalised Facebook, e-portfolios. How would you use e-portfolios? What would you get them to do in an e-portfolio?
Upload photos, talk about themselves, where they've come from.
What work they do, all that sort of stuff.
Yep, so a bit of personal history. Assessment. In terms of what, like a diagnostic or?
Well, that's what I included with that analytics. You get to understand a little bit more. The teacher gets to understand a little bit, because I didn't think it was about student. Could be a teacher that's know what the student is. So with analytics and looking at assessment and how they're going, you'll be able to get an understanding of the more work you've got to do with one student as opposed to another.
It also gives you a bit of an idea as to what they're actually accessing too. You can use the analytics to get a better feel for the kinds of resources that particular student is opting towards. So for example, if they're only ever doing the readings and they're not really engaging in any of the online discussions,